So several years ago, I'm in Hollywood, California, at the Los Angeles Film School, walking down the red carpet with my old friend and mentor, Bob Proctor. We had just appeared in a movie called Beyond the Secret. If you remember The Secret, the blockbuster movie, Bob was the big star of that movie. And they did a sequel to The Secret called Beyond the Secret. So we were in Hollywood. We had taped the movie, and we were in Hollywood doing the red carpet. Matter of fact, they have a picture of it. This is at the LA Film School, me on the red carpet. Bob's not in that picture, but that was one of just me. So anyway, we were walking, and the director of the movie said, look, the press is at the end of the red carpet. It's kind of like a mini Oscars. And they're going to ask you what it is you do and ask you some questions about the movie. Then we'll go into the theater. There were 10 of us in the movie. And then we'll answer questions. So see the movie and then answer questions for the live audience at LA Film School. So that was our coaching. So Bob Proctor and I were next to each other. We were kind of laughing because we're saying, this is funny because we're in Hollywood, like we're movie stars, right? And so Bob said, well, what are you going to tell them that you are? And Bob and I had this funny relationship. We laughed about everything. And it was just unique. And because Bob was known as a very serious guy, but with me, he wasn't. And it was just a unique relationship based on our past history. Anyway, so I said, well, I guess like an author, speaker, I mean, what we do. And he goes, I think we should say we're philosophers. And I just burst out laughing. And I said, well, if we're philosophers, that makes you, I guess that makes me Socrates, and that would effectively make you Plato. And he laughed, and so he was first before me, so I got to hear him, answer the question. So he gets up there and he said, what is exactly that you people do? And Bob said, well, we're philosophers. And I just literally started laughing. The camera didn't catch me, luckily, but Bob did. If you saw it, Bob had a smirk on his face and he almost lost it because I was laughing so hard. And they asked me the same question. I said, no, we're philosophers. I said, we're, and I just couldn't really keep it going. But the funny thing about it is, and what I want to talk about here is the pseudo-intellectualization. Is intellectualization an actual word? I don't think so, but I think I just made it one, but you get the drift. The pseudo-intellectualization of personal development. In other words, making personal development, as some people do, complicated, like it's this really complex thing. Like another thing with Bob, I used to make fun of Bob on stage because we worked all over together in big halls for years. And Bob used to carry this, if you're a Proctor fan, you know this, but he really did do this off stage as well. He carried this book, this Think and Grow Rich, he got in 1961 from one of his mentors. And it was all beat up because it was from 1961. He had beat the heck out of the thing over the years. And he carried it, and one time backstage I said, Bob, you carry that thing around like it's the Bible. He said, Steve, it is the Bible. And he started laughing. I started laughing. And I said, all that stuff, all the stuff we talk about, all the stuff in Think and Grow Rich, all the stuff we talk about, in the movie, and they talk about in The Secret, your first movie. I said, this stuff is all 8th grade. There's nothing complex about personal development. I'm not saying it's not great. I'm not saying it didn't change my life. Look, I've written 12 books on personal development. I've sold 2 million copies of my books. That puts me in the top 1% of all personal development authors in the history of personal development. So I'm very grateful. I've made tens of millions of dollars in this industry. I'm not putting it down or saying it's phony. It's totally real. It just is not complicated. And the problem is when people like speakers and authors try to make it complicated, it intimidates the masses, and people think, well, that's just beyond my intellectual capacity. No, it's not. My books, Think and Grow Rich, Bob Proctor's books, any books that you read by personal development are all 8th grade language. And Bob and I had, and other speakers, of course, but I'm thinking about Bob right now. We had these conversations over the years, and some of them really believed the idea. Bob did not, but some of them really do believe in the idea that this stuff is complicated. And like Bob said, look, I got an 8th grade education. To me, this stuff was life-changing. I said, no, it changed my life as well, and I have a very solid academic background. I mean, which doesn't, I don't know what that means anyway, but it's changed my life just like it changed, so many millions of people's lives. I'm not saying it's not powerful. I'm saying it's simple. It's kindergarten. I noticed recently Russell Brunson, the funnels genius. And I'm a fan of Russell Brunson. I don't know him personally, but I've been to his programs and I like him. He seems like a great guy. He's building this $20 million personal development library. And all I think about is he's spending $20 million basically, collecting all these rare books of things that are 8th grade. This is simple stuff you can teach a child. And I love this business. Again, this business has been very, very, very good to me. There's no question about that. Okay, better than it has to 99% of the people that have ever done this for a living. So I'm very grateful for it, and I believe in it 100%. I'm the co-founder of the International Personal Development Association, so I'm all in. All I'm saying is it's not complicated. Okay, so why all these books? Why do we read all these books? Why do I continue to read personal development books? Why do you need more than one? Why didn't we just go with Think and Grow Rich and cut it off there and just study that? Well, because as Bill Gove used to say, my late business partner, it's old wine in new bottles. In other words, there's different ways that authors and speakers, they have different points of view and they say the same thing in a different way. And some people get it one way and other people get it another way. So there's a need for more than one speaker and more from one author and more than one philosopher, if you will. But to say it's complicated is pseudo-intellectualizing this industry. And again, I think it's important. I see these programs online, study. And I used to make fun, again, I'm back to Bob. I used to make fun of Bob when he say, study this stuff with me. And I'm like, that was one of his programs. And I get what he was doing. I'd say, Bob, there's not that much to study. It's pretty basic. It's kind of like when people say about the Bible, they say, well, in the United States, of course, where Christianity is so big, they say, well, the Bible is so important because if you don't teach kids the Bible, then you can't teach them right from wrong. That's patently ridiculous. Here's how you teach kids right from wrong. The golden rule. Do unto others as you would have them do unto you. You're done. Don't be mean to people. Don't take their stuff. Don't sleep with their spouses. Don't be a jerk. Be kind. It doesn't take much. It's a 4th grade exercise. You don't need a book to tell you that. You don't need to be a college, graduate to learn it. Okay, it's simple. And so I see all these programs still you got to study these things. Now the big thing is, neuroscience. I've been studying psychology for 40 years and I haven't seen anything new in neuroscience that's come out because there is nothing new under the sun. It's just kind of funny. So what makes it complicated? Why is personal development? Why does it take effort to make it really work for you? Here's why, because we're all individuals. We're all different. And so it's not hard. What the tools you learn in personal development that you apply to your own life, those are not complicated. They are extremely simple. They're childlike simple. Who you are, applying it to finding out who you are as a human being, what your values are, what you stand for, what you care about, what you'll fight for, what you'll die for, that is complicated because that is different for every single person in the world. For example, so when I started getting, successful in this business, Bob, right to talk about Bob, we were working in Mexico one time and we were making a lot of money. Bob made $1 million, I think, for the week, and I made about $400,000, and we were sitting in the green room, and Bob said, we got to take this show on the road more than we have. Do you want to go in on a jet with me? Because I'm sick of flying commercial. And I said, a jet? I said, Bob, I called him Uncle Bob. I said, Uncle Bob, I'm trying to get off Delta. I don't want to own Delta. And he laughed. And Bob said, I just like it. It's more comfortable. I said, I don't want to spend all that money on a plane. He goes, well, it'll be like 7 or 8 of us. I said, I don't want to own an airplane. It's a terrible investment. It's not an asset. It's a complete liability. Pilots are very expensive. I just don't need it. If I fly first on points, great. I can fly coach for a 2-hour flight too and save my money and put it into better investments than an airplane. And Bob said, okay. Well, so he went out and he bought an airplane on his own because he really enjoyed it until the day he died. I mean, he flew up to the end pretty much through I think before COVID. And he really enjoyed it. And he told me that. He goes, I just love it. And I think that was great for Bob. I think knowing in our personalities with money, we're very different. Bob loved to spend money on certain things. Not a lot of things, but certain things like the airplane. I come from a family of savers. I've saved almost every dime I've ever made. That's I'm just different. I'm not saying Bob was wrong and I was right, or anyone's wrong or right. It's just you have to know yourself, and that takes time. A lot of times people get in the personal development business, so they write books or give speeches because they want to get rich. I never wanted to be rich. I never cared about being rich. I just wanted to be free. I didn't want to live under someone else's rule, and I still don't. I have a great, I just don't really favor that. That's really my greatest thing, my greatest, thing that I really value more than anything else, and that's freedom. I want to live life on my terms in every single way. And luckily I've been fortunate and I've been able to do it. But other people do this to get rich, or other people do it because they want to stroke their ego, or they do it for more noble reasons too. They want to help people in some other way, and I love helping people too. But the point of it is the complicated part of personal development is knowing who you are, really who you are, and then living in objective reality, seeing yourself and the world as you are, as the world is, as opposed to the way you wish you were or you wish the world was. It's a completely different view. And a lot of people don't live through objective reality. They live in a fantasy, magical thinking world. Not because they're dumb, but because they're emotional and they're not thinking through logic and linear thinking. And that's what makes personal development complicated. But if you think the stuff in this book, which has sold over 1 million copies, I'm very proud of it, funded my entire business and retirement and all the rest of it around the world. If anything, I think it's a very good book. I think it is. There are other books I think that are very good as well. It's a good book. There's nothing complicated in it. I've interviewed rich people for 40 years. There's nothing complicated in these books. Are they worth reading? I think so. But are they complicated? Do you have to be an intellectual to apply these things to your life? Come on. This is basic stuff. You can teach personal development to an 8th grader. That said, it's very powerful. It's worth doing. I still love it. I still write. I still speak some, even in semi-retirement. I believe in the industry. I'm building the biggest association in the history of the industry to reduce human suffering around the globe through personal development. I believe in it 100%, but I do not believe it's complicated, because I know it's not complicated, because I've been in this business a very long time. So the point of this whole thing is, study personal development if you're a fan of it. If you're watching this, you probably are. Study it, no question about it. Don't have any illusion that it's complex, that you can't teach it to a 12-year-old, because you can. Okay, we're not talking about trading derivatives on Wall Street. We're not talking about Elon Musk building a rocket. That is complicated. Okay, those things are complicated. This is not. This is basic, okay? And when all these new things come out, like neuroscience is, going to change psychology, applied psychology, and all these things, it's not, because psychology does not change. It's not like technology. It's psychology. Yes, do we make advances? Of course. But when people say things, like in neuroscience, sometimes people say, well, these things like goal setting don't work, or things like vision boards don't work. Like vision boards, one of my favorite one. Of course they work. What does a vision board do? You put a board with pictures of it on a wall and you look at the wall. What are you doing and how does it work? You're inundating your consciousness with images of what you'd like to see your future become. That's it. You inundate your consciousness with enough words and pictures, you will move toward those ends. That is psychology 101. You can teach a 12-year-old that. So when these neuroscientists come out and say, well, vision boards don't work, they don't know what they're talking about. It's a ridiculous thing to say. They really don't. They're trying to take something simple and make it complex. And personal development has never, and it never will be, complex. It's 8th grade stuff. That said, it's still very powerful. So what is complex? You are complex. I am complex. The world, people are complex because we're all different. We have things that we're the same in, but we're very different in a lot of ways. But once you discover yourself, your strengths and your weaknesses, then you apply these personal development works to your issues, your weaknesses and your strengths, well, now you have the best of both worlds. You know it's simple, but you're not simple. So you spend most of your time in personal development figuring you out, and then living through objective reality, knowing your strengths, knowing your weaknesses. And then you take all these books, right, that you resonate with, and you apply their tools, their strategies to your strengths and weaknesses. And there you have the best of personal development.